With the United States, Israel and Iran saying their missile and drone strikes are intensifying, could the flow of oil and gas be the ultimate deciding factor to end this war? While Iran maintains its blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, the US says it's destroyed 16 Iranian vessels used for laying mines. At the same time, 3 commercial vessels have been struck and damaged just this morning, and still almost no ships are sailing through the straits. I'm Neil Harvey, and this is the Newsmakers. It is already causing panic buying in resource-poor Asian countries, and it is sparking huge volatility in world oil and gas prices. Iran's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz is now becoming a critical priority in the US-Israel war on Iran. From Washington, TLT World's Andy Rojan explains why the White House emphasized those attacks on suspected Iranian mine layers.
Trump is really trying to emphasize this as a way to get shipping to resume in the Strait of Hormuz, and especially after reports, multiple reports, saying that the Iranians have either started or are going to start laying down mines. And apparently, according to reports, they've got about 2,000 to 6,000 mines available to lay in the Strait of Hormuz. Although mines or no mines, it really doesn't make a difference, because even before all this, no ships were going through the strait. There have just been too nervous. Energy companies are very skittish. The Trump team has tried to say, look, we will provide Navy escorts for you. We will provide government-backed risk insurance for you. But nobody seems to be taking it. The Trump team is trying to bring down the price of oil and get those ships through. So the White House on Tuesday continued to insist it will do whatever it takes to keep the strait open.
Last night, President Trump reiterated his commitment toward keeping oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz so the United States and all of our allies can receive their energy needs. President Trump will not allow rogue Iranian terrorists to stop the freedom of navigation and the free flow of energy.
Well, joining me now from Tehran is Professor of American Cultural Studies at the University of Tehran, that is Zohreh Kharazmi. Welcome to you, Professor. Let's just start with the fact of where you are. We're hearing now that banks are being targeted in Iran. How dangerous does it feel there?
You know, the United States and Israel regimes are the responsible for the chaos. And I think that any escalations, like, for example, what they took the precedence in attacking the civil sites, more than 7,000 houses are destroyed, 69 schools, more than 32 hospitals, and now you see the banks. I think that these sort of escalations that just make the situation worse in the region, and as Iran persistently and consistently emphasized, has the legitimate right to attack the same assets and interests linked to the United States in the region. And you know that there are lots of American banks in the GCC and other countries around Iran. So I think that there would be added to the list of legitimate targets.
Is that the war that Iran's fighting now, tit for tat? Is it almost karmic? Whatever the US and Israel do, Iran's going to respond in like?
It is not the whole story, of course, because, you know, Iranian missiles and drones were just the generation 1 and 2, that was the old ones, were successful enough to blind many of the radars and digital intercepts in the region. So it's not only retaliating tip to tap, but also even Iran has projected a very strong portrayal of its defense system. So I think that, of course, Iran is not volunteer to add civil, to target civil targets, but at the same time, these sort of escalations make the situation worse and maybe out of control.
So let's talk about the main issue, really, and it's energy prices. So we see Iran is targeting oil fields, in particular in Gulf states. Is the aim there drive the price so high that that's going to put pressure on Israel and the US to stop this war?
Trump had the claim that is going to guarantee the overflow of energy, and also even talked about escorting tankers, that Iran just made it sort of showing how ridiculous it is that, okay, we're not even targeting those tankers that are accepting this offer of the United States to be escorted by American escorts, and nobody really accepted that because the actors are rational enough to understand that those who are in control in Hormuz is Iran, not the United States, and by no means they can do so. So I think that even the energy prices, the oil, the gas, when the reserves are going to be, running out of reserves in Europe, for example, in other countries very soon, in Southeast Asia, for example, then the disaster and how the global economy is going to be down and fallen by Americans would be much more evident.
Okay, you didn't give me a yes or no. I'm going to assume that's a yes. This is to drive up the prices, to create pressure. So my next question is this an all or nothing tactic? What if effectively closing off the Strait of Hormuz and targeting oil prices doesn't work for any reason? Is there a plan B, do you think?
Yeah, every sort of plan for the escalation is probable now, because no sense of humanity, no sense of morality is in the genocidal regimes of Israel and the United States. So they are doing slaughtering people in Iran, as I said, the civil sites, the water desalination, for example, oil depots, the sort of contamination of the air. Everything was done by them, and they took the precedence to do so. So I think that the sort of escalation is absolutely possible in any range and any sort of actions.
Is there going to be a price for all this when this is all over? The fact that Iran's been targeting Gulf states, some of whom it was on pretty decent terms with, they're clearly taking, especially Qatar, taking great exception to the Iranian missile strikes. Is it going to have done really serious damage to its relations with those countries?
It would be damage, of course, not only Iran, but also the other countries in the region, and even much beyond the region, are taking the effect of this war. But there is no other way. Iran is in the very legitimate position to retaliate and defend itself and its sovereignty and totality of the territory, and all international laws based on the, for example, UN Charter, I don't know, the Geneva Conventions. You see that the act of aggression is done by the United States and Israel regime. And unfortunately, those in the region, like the GCC countries that become the complicit of this war, all are being badly affected. Just consider, for example, UAE, that, for example, are going to reconstruct its tourism anymore, or just 1.4 million of the population of UAE is really from there and passport holders. The other about 10 million population is just coming from outside. Are they going to be there, and how the population portions, how the business actually would being taken shape again? So I think that this is the mess and the chaos that the United States has created, and Iran is only just standing in its right position of self-defense.
Self-defense, you said it there. Iran sees itself as the innocent party in this, the victim. If that is the case, why does it seem so alone here? Why don't we see allied nations rushing to its defense? For example, where's Russia?
I think it's a very good relationship between, for example, Iran and China and Russia, and the purchasing of the arms, and maybe in intelligence, for example, some sharing of intelligence. Maybe it's not actually declared, and there's no reason to do so. But rationally, I think that there is a big deal between these countries. And the United States even pushed Iran to be much more integrated with China and Russia. And if we are this emerged security paradigm in Hormuz as well, indicating that not only United States is losing this war to Iran, but also to China.
Is it possible that actually,
Russia to have much more active role in that?
Is it actually possible that Russia, previously considered a great ally of Iran, is actually not doing much vocally because it's benefiting from this? Oil prices are going up. That's higher revenue for President Putin. And it's taking the focus off the Ukraine war. It's actually, we might argue, legitimizing illegal wars.
Russia is getting a good opportunity. I understand that maybe some of its sanctions is being lifted, or a sort of ease in keeping on the war in Ukraine is actually happened. But at the same time, Iran is doing and behaving responsibly against its allies, I mean the China and Russia. For example, guaranteeing the energy to be passed for China from Hormuz. And I think enough support and a sort of mutual services between between Iran and Russia also is on the track.
Zohreh, I really appreciate you coming on. Good to speak to you. Zohreh Kharazmi is Professor of American Cultural Studies at the University of Tehran. Right, let's broaden out the conversation now and bring in some more guests from Geneva. Iran Project Director at the International Crisis Group, that's Ali Vaez. Welcome to you. From London, Senior Consulting Fellow at Chatham House, Yossi Mekelberg. Welcome, Yossi. And from Washington, D.C., former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, Barbara Leaf. Welcome to you, Barbara. And I invite you all, if at any point you disagree or want to add on to something one of the other guests has said, please, at the end of it, do feel free to contribute. I'm going to start off with you, Yossi. Just a very quick yes or no question. Do you consider the US-Israeli war on Iran to be illegal? Yes or no?
There is no yes or no answer to this. I mean, there was no, as such, there is no UN security resolution to approve it. Iran didn't directly attack either of them, so there are very dubious international law basis for this. But as always in the Middle East, everyone starts history from the point that it suits them.
That sounds like you're saying illegal to me. So, based on that, why are we not seeing countries moving to sanction the United States and Israel for an illegal war, just as they did with Russia and Ukraine?
I mean, that's one of, we are trying to oversimplify a very complex situation. It's not that Iran is not almost involved with anything in the Middle East that destabilize the region.
But we're talking about legality here. I mean, that has to be the fundamental starting point, not suspicions and things that haven't been proven. That's another issue. But in terms of legality, isn't it an illegal war?
If you let me finish the sentence. You see, the fact that Iran support Hezbollah in Lebanon and destabilize Lebanon won't allow Lebanon to move forward, that it supported Hamas, that attacked on October 7, supporting the Houthis. This is a fact. It's not a speculation. At the same time, if I'm allowed, I don't think that at the point that the United States and Israel decided to go to war without exhausting the negotiation with Iran, I think they undermine their legal and moral position.
Okay, you're saying it's complicated, and in terms of legality, there has to be a conversation and it takes in lots of factors. Let's bring it to Ali Vaez. Ali, the Saudis and the UAE, now energy is really the focus of what I want to talk about today. The Saudis and the UAE, they've got land pipelines, so in theory these are to help alleviate the burden when the Strait of Hormuz is compromised. Do you think we'll see those pipelines being increasingly targeted, Ali?
It is possible. Look, one actor that has not yet joined into this battle are the Houthis in Yemen. It appears that Iran is keeping them in reserve as a deterrent against Saudi and the UAE joining the war on the side of Israel and the United States. But it also provides Iran with additional leverage. One leverage is, indeed, if the pipelines provide a way of going around the Strait of Hormuz and would result in the oil prices coming down, then the Houthis joining the fight and targeting those pipelines would provide Iran with an option. The Houthis putting pressure on Bab el-Mandeb and the Red Sea would also, again, amplify what Iran is doing itself in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. We've had situations in which the Houthis have intervened and interrupted the free flow of commerce out of the Red Sea. And we've had incidents of the closure of a choke point as critical as the Strait of Hormuz in the past. What we've never experienced is both of these choke points being under pressure at the same time. And so that seems to be a card that Iran still has up its sleeve that can play down the road.
Barbara, let's bring you in at this point. When we hear President Trump suggesting that his military campaign is almost complete, it happens at a time when energy prices are absolutely spiking over the last few days. Do you think his announcement is because he actually does believe that the campaign is almost complete, or is it a result of the fact that he can't continue with this campaign because of the prices?
Neil, those are all good questions. Very unclear at this point, day 12 of the conflict. And to go back to some of the points you raised with Ali, I would just like to add that the Iranians have already attacked the East-West pipeline, the Saudi East-West pipeline, before in 2019. They didn't acknowledge it at the time, but it was widely known that the Iranians had struck the pipeline, knocked oil production off, or oil flows off for about 50% for a couple of days. Saudis recovered. Likewise, the pipeline that the Emiratis have built to Fujairah port on the Sea of Oman side was attacked the other day by Iranian drones. So I think those are both vulnerable points, and the Iranians have shown consistently that they will continue to escalate. As to the president's comments, day 12, we hear, even within the same day, as we did yesterday, conflicting messages about the ultimate aims, the scope, the duration of this conflict. But undoubtedly, prices at the gas pump will have a very profound effect on the president's thinking.
So I'm going to stay with you on this. I mean, my guest in Iran, she wouldn't say it explicitly, but the impression I got was, yes, this is a deliberate tactic from Iran. And do you see that as being America and Israel's Achilles heel? That the price, as the price goes up, in correlation will increase international pressure on them? So
undoubtedly, there are different pressure points on the U.S. president than there are on the Israeli prime minister. There's a whole array of pressure points on the president that Prime Minister Netanyahu does not have to contend with. That's American public opinion. That's the restiveness of the Congress. That is prices, the markets, etc., and international partners in Asia who are really beginning to feel the punch, and our Gulf partners. And I would just like to go back to your Iranian guest, just duck the whole issue that they began targeting civilian sites day one. So yes, the Iranian missiles and drones targeted U.S. forces across the Gulf, but they targeted hotels the first day. They continue to target civilian airports and an array of critical civilian infrastructure, including Qatar's desal plant on Friday.
Yossi Mekelberg, let's bring it back to you. I mean, you'll have studied some of this previous conflicts and the way that different belligerent countries act to try and win. What does history tell us about the effort of trying to create financial pain? Does it prove effective ultimately?
I think not necessarily so. And we saw already that the IEA on the verge of releasing probably 182 million barrels of oil, unprecedented, and then maybe more than that. I think the international community can sustain it. And I think to what we saw in the stock markets, part of it is probably speculation, part of it is serious, the psychology of markets when they see threat. But the fear here that this might be a very prolonged war. I think the problem, both Israel and the United States entered this war based on the best case scenario. Best case scenario that they get everything what they want, and B, they will do it in a very short time. What history teaches us that this doesn't happen like this, and usually wars like this drag on for quite a long time. The Iranians show in this kind of situation resilience. They fought 8 years in the 1980s against Iraq with hardly any support from the outside. So the assumption that this will be quicker, then it's going to affect the region. It affects beyond that. Now, then the question is, of course, of capabilities, military capabilities, regime resilience. But we have to remember that for the Iranian regime, it's all about its survival. So unless there is a way out of it for the regime itself, they'll probably continue to fight.
Do you think there's a different, staying with you, Yossi, do you think there are different kind of durations that are tolerable for the US president or for the Israeli prime minister? Might they diverge here on how long they are willing for this to continue?
So we see historically there is different. Again, we know about Trump, is unpredictable, and it might decide declare victory tomorrow in a week time, who knows, and he keeps changing his version, changing the goalpost, moving the goalpost about the aim and the duration, which is confusing for everyone. We know for Israel as a small country, when people are in shelter for quite a prolonged time, it hurts the economy. It's also, its army is based mainly on reservists, so the hit to the economy is quite hard. In this sense, the Iranian, and again, not the Iranian people, because they suffer immensely. The question is the regime as regime probably has more endurance in this sense.
Ali, let's come back to you. Now, I've spoken to analysts previously who told me that, the US, nobody can really stop Iran from effectively closing down the Strait of Hormuz. It's just not possible through various means, mines being just one of them. And we've already seen today at least 3 attacks on vessels in the region of the Strait with projectiles targeting them. Does that mean that effectively the world's energy prices at the moment are at the mercy of Iran, even though it's getting battered on the military front? Are energy prices in Iran's hands?
I think that is correct, because it takes very little for Iran to disrupt the flow of energy out of the region. It takes just one drone or one limp mine to hit a vessel and create an incident for everybody else to be afraid, and the chilling effect to set in. Insurance companies would pull back, and then you would see the traffic stopping. And stopping the and stemming Iran's production of drones and firing of drones is so much more difficult to do than when it gets to missiles, for example. And there are other means at Iran's disposal as well, like speedboats or underwater drones, or even rockets, anti-ship cruise missiles. There are so many additional options that I think, short of trying to occupy the southern shore of Iran, the US doesn't really have a good option in trying to stop this. And this is precisely the game that Iran is playing, because it understands that in a game of endurance, because it has a much higher threshold for pain, it can stay in this war much longer than the US and Israel, and therefore would be able to get a ceasefire with terms that are favorable to itself.
Yossi, what do you think is going to end this war? Will it be energy prices or something else?
I don't think just energy prices. There are a lot of cost pressures in all countries. There are pressure within Iran, in Israel, as long Israel, again, strategically, historically, it's more used to a short wars and also one that there is a kind of a decisive resolution, and also the people united. This is not the people are united when it comes to Iran, but not necessarily after 2.5 years of being in a state of war, whether there is for how long they can support this war. We see we are in the middle of a midterm election in the United States, and we see even within the mega camp, there are people that strongly oppose this war. So they will come, there is a kind of a very delicate balance between all the pressures internally and externally. But I think one of the mistakes that Israel and the United States did, that they didn't build a coalition. If they want to do something like this and stop the negotiation, not building a coalition in the region with Europe, with allies, before taking unilateral steps like this.
Barbara, the United States, the current administration's made it pretty clear that it enjoys going after natural resources of other countries. President Trump's had his eye on rare minerals in Ukraine, then Greenland. He kidnapped the president of Venezuela and then made plans to take Venezuelan oil. Would you rule out the possibility of the United States making a move on Iran's oil supplies?
Well, I don't think much can be ruled out, but I think we've already seen, much as the president has mused publicly about the desire to find a Venezuela-like solution to Iran, to find the Delcy Rodriguez among the regime with whom the U.S. can construct a compliant relationship on the part of the regime, but a sort of a productive relationship. To say the least, what many analysts have said every day of this conflict, and I associate myself with this view, Iran is not Venezuela. So whatever the spectrum of reasons, whatever the spectrum of aims are on the U.S. side, including potentially having access to Iranian oil. I mean, it can't be ruled out. The president is in the process of finding that that Iran is not Venezuela.
Barbara, I'm going to stay with you because my understanding is you've got experience of advising former Secretary of State Blinken on dealing with Iran. So when you dealt with them, was it a carrot or a stick approach? What did you find worked best?
So, you know, I like to think of the U.S.-Iranian relationship as a 47-year violent non-relationship. We have not had relations since we broke them in the spring of 1980 under the Carter administration. We've not had a physical presence there operating on the ground, engaging with the regime, but also engaging with the Iranian people for 47 years. So our understanding of the regime is quite imperfect. But what that regime has done consistently in a widening circle has followed a policy, a set of policies that were extremely destructive to the region, that constantly threatened U.S. partners, but also the U.S. directly itself. So it is one of the most complicated actors, one of the most complicated regimes with which we've had to deal in various ways. And every administration has used a variety of tools. But what we found over time that you have to use that full spectrum because the military option alone simply doesn't produce everything you need.
I think we've got about 1 minute left. So, I mean, it's a slightly unfair question. I'm going to ask it to each of you. Let's first come to you, Ali. How long do you think this is going to go on for? Weeks, months?
Well, we talked about oil being a factor in the president's calculation. There is also a question of who will run out of ammunition first. That is a very important factor too. And based on what assessments I've seen, I would say probably another week or at max 2 weeks.
A week or 2 weeks. So just very quickly, Yossi, to you, how long do you think?
I probably agree with this, but I think it also might change character, the way that both sides are approaching the war.
Okay, short term. And Barbara, finally, how long do you see this lasting?
1 to 2 weeks, because the president is quite capable of pivoting at any point now and declaring this a victory for the U.S.
Thank you so much to all three of you for coming on. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Ali Vaez, Yossi Mekelberg and Barbara Leaf are my guests. And indeed, that wraps it up for our programme. Thank you so much at home for watching. Remember, you can follow us on social media and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Neil Harvey. This is the Newsmakers. See you soon.